I know managers that started. You take Irving Azoff, and the old days of, they had a deal where it was like 50-50. So look, I'll pay for everything. I'll get you the house. I'll get you the car. I'll do everything else, but it's 50-50. In the early days of Geffen Roberts, they had this 50-50 deal with acts. But they would buy the house for the act. And there were managers that 25% used to be sort of an average. I mean, that's what I had with the police. I was 25%, but I was actually funding. I was putting money in. So I would have thought the percentage really did depend on the risk you were taking and the money you put in. Any bank, if you go to an investor, to put into whatever it is, normally they want a big chunk of it. So I would say from a management standpoint, if the manager's putting money in, then he gets a bigger percentage. If he's simply taking a percentage of what the act gets, then, it really depends on what he's delivering to the table. So a percentage really relates to what you're getting. I think, if you look at the American Idol and all these sort of things, the percentage they take is huge. But look what they deliver. You're an unknown person. Next thing you know, you're a superstar around the world because the TV made it happen. Now they own everything. But you know what? You're doing a lot better than you were doing when you were working in a coffee shop and nobody knew who the hell you were. So is it fair? Well, they're getting the lion's share of it, and the act isn't. But you know what? They made the act. So what's fair? I think the biggest mistake of acts and the entertainment business is they keep talking about, protecting your artist and all about the artist, the artist, the artist. You know what? Managers are artists too. A good manager is more valuable than a good act. Or at least as valuable as the guitar player or the drummer or whatever it is. The sound man who enables, or the light guy that enables you to be impressive on the stage has a value. Maybe more so than half the members in the group. So all this, when people talk about, the act and you're famous for supporting your act, yeah, great. But you know what? Managers have a value too, and it's equal to any member of the group for sure. And in some cases, a lot more valuable. And so, what is an act manager worth? Well, he's worth what he can make happen for an act. So I had this whole idea of the act as some sort of like, oh wow, the act, And I got, record companies to talk about, oh well, we're artist oriented. And I look at them and I think, you're artist oriented? Tell that to your shareholders. You care about the act? You're supposed to make a profit for the people who invested in your company. This whole idea of the act here, and I think acts need to understand that they are not something special, that they are part of a machine, and that the more proactive they are in building that support thing, that they're part of it, that they inspire the manager to want to work harder for them. They inspire the agent to really want to kill for them because that they say thank you, that they make the record company think that they're allies as opposed to the enemy, So the really smart acts are the ones that take the time to sort of reward their support system, because that support system will be there with them for the long time. So for that act that has that gets to the #1 record and thinks they're all big time right now, and then they won't take phone calls anymore, they won't do interviews, or they forget the people that helped them on the way up. Those acts are destined to die really quickly. And there was actually a very famous act at the same sort of time the police were happening called the Knack. We actually had him as a support act on some of our early dates. And they had an album that came out of nowhere and went #1. My Sharona, And this act went from being, an unknown to very known with this one single, and then decided that they were big superstars. They refused interviews. They turned into real jerks. And all the radio people now would call them up and say, hey, look, you got your new record coming out. Can we do it? Nah, we're not going to do that now. Radio said, okay, great. They didn't play the record. Second record, I think they went, I don't know how many million, I think they did less than 50,000. Went literally to zero because they took an attitude. They didn't realize that, look, it's not just about you, buddy. It's about everybody. If they had gone out the second time out and everybody that had given them an interview on their first thing, radio station calls up, or some journalist, some small newspaper, hey, I'd love to do anything. Hey, you got it, buddy. You helped us on the way up. I'm there for you. What do you need? You got it. We're right there. they would have had a fan base and they'd be huge right now. But they turned their back on everybody. So these acts, you know, if I had any message to an act, is to say, look, okay, you're making the music and you're going on stage, you're doing whatever it is you're doing, but it's not just about you. You better make sure that you're taking care of all the people that help you along the way, because you're going to need them, okay? You can't just do it on your own. And the smartest acts, if you ever travel with Bruce Springsteen, you know, you realize this is just a good guy. You like him. You know, whether you like the music or not, you know, I was never really a big fan of his music. But when we traveled around the world with him, I just said, you know what? I just like this guy. You know what? So I'm going to want to like his music. You know, the smart acts, the really smart ones that had longevity, they knew that, you know what? A little bit of politeness, a little bit of courtesy, a little bit of, you know, making sure I keep my friends close to me and reward them on a long-term basis. Those are the acts that really last, you know, and the ones that have the respect in the long run.